Hello, students. Today, we are going to discuss a very important topic, one that is a part of all our daily lives. We are talking about the waste we produce. It's really crucial for us to understand what happens to all the things we throw away and, more importantly, how we can manage this waste better to protect our environment. So, let's start with a simple thought. I want you to just think for a moment. Think about the dustbin in your own home. What exactly did you throw in it today? Maybe it was a food wrapper, some vegetable peels from the kitchen, perhaps an old pen that stopped working, or a plastic bottle. You see, all of us create this waste every single day. But have you ever really wondered, where does it all go?
Okay, so this is what we will be covering today. First, we'll look at our daily waste problem. Then, we will understand the two main types of waste. After that, we'll talk about the harm that piling garbage causes to our environment. And then, we'll move to the solutions, how we can manage waste smartly, and discuss the most important solution, the 3 R's.
So let's begin with our first section, our daily waste problem. The big question is, why are our dustbins always getting so full? Well, a big part of the answer has to do with our modern way of life. You see, as our lives have become more modern and convenient, we have started using a lot more single-use items. Think about it. Plastic cups, all the packaging that our food comes in, wet wipes, this culture of using things once and then throwing them away, this disposable culture, is a major reason for the huge amounts of garbage we are now creating. Now, if we want to manage this garbage, we first need to understand it, because you see, not all waste is the same. We can broadly classify all waste into 2 main types. Getting this difference is very, very important for understanding this entire topic. So on one hand, we have what is called biodegradable waste. This includes things like our kitchen scraps, vegetable peels, paper, and cotton cloth. These are substances that can be broken down naturally by microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. They just rot and become a part of the soil again. But on the other hand, we have non-biodegradable waste. This includes things like plastics, glass, and metal cans. These substances cannot be broken down by natural processes, and so they just stay in the environment for hundreds or even thousands of years. This brings us to a very good question. What is the reason for this? Why is it that a tiny bacterium can decompose a banana peel, but it cannot do anything to a simple plastic bag?
The answer lies in a biological concept called enzyme specificity. You see, microorganisms produce special chemicals called enzymes to break down materials. But these enzymes are very specific. It's like a key that can only fit into one particular lock. So these microorganisms have the right keys, the right enzymes, to break down natural substances. But they don't have the keys for man-made things like plastic. Think of it this way. Our body has enzymes to digest food like rice and get energy from it. But can we get energy from eating coal? No, we just don't have the right enzymes for it. It's the same principle. And this leads us to our next important point. Because this non-biodegradable waste cannot break down, it just keeps piling up. And this creates very serious problems for our planet and our health.
Let's look at some of these problems. When garbage piles up, it causes soil pollution, which means plants cannot grow properly. This waste often gets washed into rivers and lakes, polluting our water. Animals sometimes mistake pieces of plastic for food, and when they eat it, it can choke them and even kill them. And of course, these large garbage heaps become breeding grounds for flies, mosquitoes, and other pests that can spread diseases. Now, this is a very big problem, but the good news is that there are smart ways to manage it. So let's now look at the solutions. What can we do to deal with this problem? The first and most important step begins right in our homes. It is called waste segregation. This simply means separating our waste into 2 bins. One for wet waste, that is our biodegradable waste like vegetable peels and leftover food, and another bin for dry waste, the non-biodegradable things like plastic wrappers, glass bottles, and paper. This simple habit makes all the other steps of waste management so much easier and more effective. So, once the waste is properly segregated, we can manage it much better. The wet, biodegradable waste can be used for composting, which turns it into excellent, nutrient-rich fertilizer for plants. The dry waste, like paper, plastic, and glass, can be sent for recycling, where it is used to make new products. And of course, many items can simply be reused. For example, a glass jar from jam can be washed and used to store something else instead of being thrown away. Now, apart from what we do in our homes, waste is also managed on a much larger scale. Our towns and cities have sewage treatment plants. These plants clean all the wastewater from our homes and factories before it is released into rivers. This is a very important step to prevent water pollution. And all of this brings us to what is perhaps the most powerful and simple principle for protecting our environment. It is something we should all remember and practice. We call it the principle of the 3 Rs.
The first R is reduce. This is the idea of creating less waste to begin with. It is about being mindful. For example, when you go shopping, choose products that have less packaging. Or if you're buying just 1 or 2 items, maybe you don't need a plastic bag at all. This is about stopping the problem right at the source. The second R stands for reuse. Before throwing anything away, just pause and ask yourself, can I use this for something else? A plastic box that your food was delivered in can become a container to store things. An old t-shirt can be used as a cleaning cloth. A great example of reuse is taking your own cloth bag to the market every time you go shopping. And the third R is recycle. This is what we should do with things when we cannot reduce or reuse them. Recycling is the process of collecting waste materials and turning them into new products. For instance, old newspapers can be processed to make new paper. Old plastic bottles can be recycled to make fabric for t-shirts or even new bottles. This saves a lot of resources and energy. So we have the 3 Rs: reduce, reuse, and recycle. But I want you to think about this for a moment. Which one of these 3 do you think is the best? Which one has the biggest positive impact on our environment? The answer, and this is very important to remember, is reduce. While all 3 are good practices, reducing our consumption is the most powerful. But why? Because if we don't create the waste in the first place, then there's no need to spend energy and resources on reusing or recycling it. It is the most proactive choice. So the best thing you can do for the planet is to simply use less. All right, now let's quickly summarize the most important points from our discussion today. These are the key takeaways that will be very useful for your exam preparation. So, to recap, first, remember the 2 types of waste: biodegradable, which breaks down naturally, and non-biodegradable, which stays in the environment for a very long time and causes harm. Second, the main problem is that the accumulation of this waste pollutes our soil and water and is very dangerous for animals. And third, our best solution is to practice the 3 Rs: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And that brings us to the end. I will leave you with one final thought to reflect upon. What is one single-use, disposable item that you use almost every day that you could easily replace with a reusable one starting from today itself? Remember, even small changes, when made by all of us, can create a very big and positive impact. Thank you for listening.